YouTube. That's what you got to do. This is Errol Marks from the Worldwide Sports Radio Network, and we are Jabba in the Mouth, and we're here at Super Bowl 59 on a wonderful, beautiful Thursday afternoon, and we're here with the great and only Tony Porter. It's the CEO of A Call to. How are you, Tony?
I'm well. I appreciate you brothers having me.
You look healthy. You look good. I saw pictures of you. You could flex, man. Do you work out?
Not as much as I should.
You know, but you look good, man. And it's great. We meet a lot of people, and I've heard a lot about you. Tell us a little bit about your organization.
So A Call to Men, our work is primarily with men, really addressing what we call healthy manhood, healthy masculinity, just looking at the challenges that we have as men, how some of those translate into relationships with women, as well as how they're impacting us as individual men. We work a lot with pro sports. That's how I met Brother Goody here, working with Major League Baseball. We work extensively with the NFL. That's what has us here. You know, hockey, basketball, all pro sports. We're with colleges and universities all over the country. We're just talking about LSU. We do a lot of work with them as well. Anywhere where you find men and boys, we try to be in those spaces.
It's incredible, man. It's and I did the interview over there, and we talked a lot, and I think it's great what you're doing, and how we talked about building a foundation for men and being comfortable with their emotions and not being afraid to seek health or help. What are some of the challenges that that you see amongst different sports? So like in football, what kind of challenge do you see in football versus various other sports, such as baseball and hockey, and what athlete would you say of the 3 or 4 sports or all the sports that you cover are more prone to asking and seeking help and versus being more, standoffish or not as willing to go out and seek help?
From what I experienced, when you think about pro sports, team sports, it's not a lot of daylight between that. We're all stuck. You know, from the time we're little boys, whether you're playing baseball, whether you're playing football, basketball, hockey, we're all taught the same thing, right? And what you're hitting on here, Nick, is asking for help is a sign of weakness, right? When you think about that, we want men to know that asking for help is a sign of strength. Right, but this whole notion that asking for help is a sign of weakness is killing men. We know 6 million men go undiagnosed for depression and anxiety. We know men commit suicide, complete suicide, 4 times the rate of women. Women live 8-10 years longer than us as men. There's an epidemic of loneliness with men, you know, and then you add social media to that, and the fact that you can hide in your basement and never come out. You can order food, you never go out. You can get everything without going out of your house. All of this here is acting on men in a horrible way, and it's going back. So we're passing it to our sons from generation to all of us at this table right here can share about men in our lives that are suffering from everything that I'm sharing about right now, and it's going unchecked. We're not talking about it. We're not doing much at all about it. So we love working with pro athletes, not only for their betterment, but because they have that voice, that megaphone, that when they speak, other men listen.
You know, there's so much that I've heard over the last couple of years in professional sports with women's sexual abuse. A lot of these players are beating their wives and doing some disgusting things, not just here in football, baseball, hockey, basketball. When you look at the game and what the game is trying to do to protect women from certain athletes and certain men, do you think they have done enough, or do you think they should do more?
Well, I'm going to say we can always do more, but what I love about what pro sports is doing, more so than, and if you think about pro sports as a workplace, pro sports are doing more probably than any other workplace to address these issues. I also want to say, while we do have this, what you're talking about right now is this epidemic of violence against women and girls. It's real. It's definitely real. 1 out of 6 women will be raped in our nation. Every 3 to 6 seconds, a woman's a victim of domestic violence.
I didn't know that.
30% of women who are killed by their husband or boyfriend or partner. So it's real. The violence that women experience at the hands of men is not like it doesn't go the other way. It does, but the large amount of violence is men's violence against women. So pro sports has really been addressing that in a real intentional way, and I really appreciate that. And at the same time, truth be told, pro athletes, their behavior gets magnified, and rightfully so.
Yep.
But the truth of the matter is, violence against women and girls is much more of an issue outside of sports than in sports. We just magnify it in sports because of who they are, but I'm real good with how pro sports is addressing it. And if we in society would mirror that, we'd be making a lot more headway.
I think every major league team, as we alluded to, I'm pretty sure every major league team has a sports psychiatrist, somebody that you can reach out to. And I mentioned that during our interview. I think each team that had one, two. So I played for 3 teams in the major leagues. We had a male in New York, a female in Cleveland, and a male in Texas. And I felt, when I first broke in, it was difficult to go and talk to them because it was taboo and it was seen as a sign of like, oh, something's wrong, right? Mm-hmm. When I got to Cleveland and I had the female CC, I felt way more comfortable going in and speaking to her. Why do you think that is?
Well, you're right. Every team has a team clinician, right? In every sport, which is wonderful. Now, getting the men to use a team clinician is another story. And to your point, Nick, it is easier for men to talk to a woman than to talk to another man. I encourage the NFL to have more women team clinicians years ago, and most of them are, not all, but most are. And I'm not saying we wouldn't talk to a dude, but the truth of the matter is it's easier for we as men, if we're going to be vulnerable, because that's what working with a therapist is, a clinician is about being vulnerable, and we as men don't do vulnerability well, but we'll do it much more easier with a woman. And we can think back to our relationships with our moms. That's where we was most vulnerable in relation with dad. Is the punch in the chest, is the wrestling and all of that, and his mom, who you come to when you're in pain, when you're hurting, when you want to cry, and all of that. So it's easier for us as men to talk to women, without doubt. But I firmly believe we're shortchanging ourselves because there's so much that we can learn from each other as men, right? But we're taught, don't ask for help, don't offer help, don't accept help is a sign of weakness. We need to see it as a sign of strength.
We're here with Tony Porter, CEO of A Call to Men. We're at Super Bowl 59 at Radio Row. It's a beautiful day, Thursday. It's very hot, 80 degrees in New Orleans.
Yeah.
Right now it's snowing in New York. It's cold, it's icy, and we're here in New Orleans getting ready for Super Bowl 59, Kansas City versus Eagles. I look at the league, and there's so much going on. Obviously, the chemical imbalance of some of these players. I mean, a lot of these guys are CTE problems, head trauma problems. When you look at what the league is trying to bring to the game, trying to protect their players, do you see the league trying to transition it a little bit more to protect the players for their futures? Or do you see the league just trying to bring in more money and more cash where the league is just going to grow astronomically?
I don't know about the piece on the financial end, but what I do know is they have to do more to protect the players, right? The society is demanding that, and the players are demanding that. Now, I know, the issues come up around the game. We're too soft, we're too this, we're too that. We got the sliding with the quarterbacks versus being hit head on, the way we used to play the game. I hear all kinds of things about the way the game used to be versus the way the game is today. For the most part, we're still enjoying this game, and everything evolves. So I love the fact that we're paying attention to men. I was just talking to interviewing someone over here, and the dude walked by, a former player, and one of my staff said, look at the way he's walking. I know he's a former player.
Of course.
Right? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That does not have to, and, in a football, career, if you play double-digit years, that's 1 out of 5 men on the team. Not many men play double-digit years. So an average is about 5-6 years, and even them, man, that when the career is over, their bodies are wrecked.
And that's where they're most vulnerable.
Yeah, and that's 30 years. So the changes they made, with kickoffs and whatnot, a lot of people don't like it. But that collision at 10, 15 miles an hour is killing people, man. Is that what we truly want to be entertained? So I'm down with the changes.
I have two sons, as you know. During the rookie development that we did, you brought up, we're all taught tell our kids not to cry. I'm one who tells my sons not to cry. Reason being, I want them to know the difference between actual pain and crying because they just want something. That's how I parent? What is your thoughts on that?
Before I get to not to cry, I want to ask, why are you crying? Right. And I want us to think about the way we socialize girls versus the way we socialize boys, right? Because with boys, it's stop crying. With our daughters is, what's going on, baby girl?
Yep.
What's bothering you? Why are you crying? She grows up to be much more emotionally intelligent. She grows up understanding herself on a much deeper level than we understand ourselves as men, right? When you think about humanity, right? Collectively speaking, women are a much better example in that than we as men. Collectively speaking, not individual. As men, we're more of like a role self versus our whole self, right? We don't get to be our authentic selves far too often, right? And then you can look at where a lot of that starts. So what I would want to see, regardless of gender, that we can raise our boys and girls in a much more neutral way. So there are many times when I would say to my daughter, what are you crying for?
Yeah.
Same thing I would say to my son, but not putting it in any kind of agenda box, right? That you just telling your boy stop crying and you're saying to your daughter, come here, baby girl, get on my knee, daddy got you. And we remove the gender from it and just raise them to be healthy human beings. Right? So for me, it's not immediately stop crying. It's more about, why are you crying? Let's talk about why you're crying. And then that might lead to stop crying, or it might lead to a discussion of what's hurting you. So that's the way I see it.
I like it.
Tony, I have one more question for you. I know you're a busy guy.
Go for it.
I'm a kid that obviously over the years I had anger management problems growing up as a kid, and my parents couldn't control me, so they sent me to an all boys school, and I had to learn the hard way. You never realize how tough you are or not tough you are until you go somewhere where there are tougher people, right? I grew up, and there are other kids that don't grow up. They get incarcerated, they get put in a position where they put themselves in a place where they're never going to be able to get themselves out of that ditch. Is there something as a person that's helped men and helped boys, develop and become more open to becoming like, a family, building a family and building a life? Is there something that you could give the fans out there, how you present that to these kids that have problems?
Yeah. So when you think about anger in your situation, as you said, you had anger, we call them anger issues, or however people define them. As men, the only emotion that we collectively give each other permission to express is anger, right? For the most part, we're ebbing and flowing with all other emotions, but anger is the one that we collectively get down with. The challenge there, though, is anger, while being an emotion, is actually a secondary emotion. So what am I saying? Every time you get angry, you are either scared or your feelings was hurt, right? I guarantee you, every time you get angry, something frightened you or your feelings was hurt. We don't take the opportunity to talk about, what's frightening you, because we can't say that as men. We ain't scared of shit. Excuse me. We ain't scared of nothing. So we can't say what I'm scared of. And we definitely can't talk about pain as men, right? We act as if, and in sports, the whole no pain, no pain, no pain. We act as if pain doesn't exist, right? And if we can begin to talk about our fears and talk about our pain instead of just simply saying I'm pissed off, right? Like, we would never say to another dude, yo, man, what you did hurt my feelings.
No. You'll never hear that from me.
Exactly.
You'll never hear that from me.
Right. But instead is, what you did pissed me off, do it again, X, Y, and Z. And even if you're not going to say what you did hurt my feelings, I want you to know that what's happening for you in this moment is your feelings are hurt.
Right.
You know, when I talk to men who are incarcerated, and I've done it and do it often, when we have this conversation right here, you can see the look in their eyes, man, that if they had had this ability to just pause and ask themselves a question, it don't have to be a real physical pause, but just a gut pause, you can see in their eyes that they're processing, I wouldn't be here for the next 25 years if I had this conversation before I got here, you know? So yeah, it's really, it still comes back to who am I and understanding who I am. You know, we talked about raising boys. One of the keys to raising boys to be healthier is to help them to be their authentic selves, to know who they are authentically, instead of, we talk about it to call the men, just being locked down in this box.
Man, I'm telling you, I'm speechless. Every time I listen to you and Miss Kimya talk, I love it. I really enjoy our conversation. I think what you're doing is fantastic. I love that you're getting out into all the sports, and you know, I'm an advocate, man. I enjoy it. I really appreciate you.
I appreciate you too, man. I appreciate you both.
Tell the fans how they can find you on social media.
Sure. We're on everything social media at A Call to Men. At acalltomen.org. That's our a website, but all social media is at A Call to Men. You can find us there.
All right. Tony Porter, ladies and gentlemen, the CEO of A Call to Men.
All right.
Fantastic interview. Thank you, Tony.
Thank you, Tony. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Happy Super Bowl 59.
Yes, sir.
Go Tigers.